Welcome to the Soul Fam Podcast. I'm Diana Marquetta, host of the Soul Fam Podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe at the end of this. Today, I'm super excited to bring Laura Christine Saenz. She is the CEO, founder, and certified health coach for Live Vegan Vibrantly. Laura's had an incredibly interesting journey with food, and she's been working at this for 25 years. She's currently working on her PhD. Can you explain that a little bit, Laura, about what your PhD actually is going to involve?
Sure. It's practicing holistic medicine. And yeah, I can touch on that a little bit further as I get further down the road with it. But just the gist of it is holistic medicine and being a practitioner to help people further and deeper in their healing journeys.
She is very experienced in our understanding of the food system and of the current medical system. I am not a big fan of the news, even though my background's in journalism. However, I'm going to say that right now there's been a lot of discussion in the news about vaccines, about our food system, about pharmaceuticals. Laura's going to share a little bit with us today about her own journey and how her understanding of food as medicine and really food is life began. So welcome, Laura. I'm super excited to talk with you, and I know our audience needs your message.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Diana. As I shared with you when we met, I'm so excited for this opportunity with you, and just thank you too for doing the type of work that you do. I think it's really important to get the message out. There's more awareness than ever before, but we still need each other to really support this movement and going forward. So I'm just so happy to support you and your audience and everybody that decides to listen in. So thank you again for having me. I'm super honored and grateful.
My pleasure. Seriously, my pleasure. Tell me, how did this get started? I think I understand that you had your own personal experience with food or perhaps a medical situation that led you to really understand more about your own personal habits and then really about the kind of food we're consuming these days.
Yeah, well, my journey started many years ago. I would say, at least a few decades ago. I, just like everybody else, was on the standard American diet, which is known as the SAD diet. And, I did grow up eating fruits and vegetables. And, my parents were really into physical activity and things like that. But for some reason, that way of life just wasn't enough. Also, I think just growing up to like in the 90s, it was just really different back then. Food standards have grown totally different as far as like mainstream versus natural and holistic, just more knowledge widely available. And of course, like with the internet, but basically part of my path of not only becoming ill, I really wasn't following my calling. And I think too, there's always a combination of not just like what you're putting in your body, but how you're living your life, who are you surrounded by? Like, I really look at the entire picture of your health as a holistic overview. It's not just what you're eating. Are you moving well? Are you sleeping well? What's your stress level like? What are the people that you have or the relationships that you have? Are you, do you have a fulfilling career or job at least? So I was in IT, information technology, and it was really like a luxury prison, so you have this like 9 to 5 jobs, pretty soul sucking, at least for me it was. And it was a sedentary lifestyle. I still would, move around, but just living, I think that type of lifestyle was just, it wasn't for me. I remember like driving every morning and seeing this like haze of pollution in the air. And I'm like, wow, I'm contributing to this.
Right.
And I was really into the environment at that time. I became really into it when I was around 14. I've interviewed people that woke up when they were like 6 or 3 years old and they're like, oh my gosh, like animal abuse or, the planet Earth and things. So I kind of like had all this, knowledge, but didn't really put it all together. So long story short, I ended up getting diagnosed with Crohn's disease,
Yeah.
fibromyalgia, I had arthritis, I had chronic fatigue syndrome, anxiety, depression, and a lot of the doctors were, oh, I had anemia. So I really felt bad and I got really sick and I was bedridden. I really couldn't eat much, applesauce, saltines, just trying to get by. And the doctors were,
How old were you, if you don't mind me
gosh,
asking?
I was like in my late 20s.
Wow.
Yeah, late 20s. So it happened early on for me. And the doctors were like, oh, there's no cure for Crohn's disease. Like, you have to take this
Hmm.
pill and be on it for the rest of your life. And I was like, I don't think so. There was just something inside of me that was telling me this just doesn't sound right. So when I was in bed, I started having these visions of people that I wanted to surround myself with who were, you know, they were older than me, but they were, physically active. Like, I could imagine them playing tennis, like they were really healthy, like they were leading
Hmm.
these, happy, fulfilling lives. And I was like, okay, I'm getting this vision, and that's where I'm going. And I
Huh.
didn't really know how to get there, but I just said, I'm going there. So I started this journey where I left corporate, took a leap of faith, and went into yoga teacher training and became a full time yoga teacher and just traveled, throughout the United States, like, living
Oh,
out of my car,
cool.
helping people, and really just trying as much as I could to
Huh.
figure out how to cure what I was dealing with. And so eventually I was I landed in San Diego. That became my home base. And I got hired through a mutual yoga teacher friend. She had a birthday party and she had like the directors of the Center of Integrative Medicine from UCSD at the
Right.
party, and we just started talking about food. And they're like, well,
Hmm.
we're running this anti-cancer disease preventative program and we would love for you to come teach it.
Wow.
And I was like, yes, I totally will. And it was almost like you know like God stepped in, or
Right.
divine stepped in and said, here's this opportunity. I didn't have to apply. I didn't have to interview. It was just
Hmm.
over like eating vegan cookies that I had brought to the party for my girlfriend.
Oh,
And they're like, come teach this class. And I'm like, awesome. So it was a macrobiotic whole food plant based nutrition class. And we focused on healing anything from, cancer to high cholesterol to diabetes to
huh.
literally everything. And I just ran with it. And
Wow.
then the doctors started prescribing me to their patients to privately cook for them, while they had cancer, while they were
Hmm.
trying to heal from disease, and just
Hmm.
showing them like these are this is how you eat to heal yourself naturally, and using food as medicine. And you can do it in a delicious, healthy, fulfilling, satisfying way. And that's really what happened. And it was like second nature to me. Like, it was almost like this totally makes sense. I was in alignment. And ever since that happened, I formed Live Vegan Vibrantly because I said, I need to get this out to the entire planet and
Hmm.
also share, like, you know, how I've healed using this food. And, that's just like from 20 years ago. And I've had other journeys where I've had to dig deeper and explore other things. And I've learned even more about nutrition and healing and cleansing, like on a whole nother level. And I feel like God steps in and says, okay, we're going to give you this experience. And everything you learned before doesn't work. So you're going to have to learn something else. And
Hmm.
so I had that recently happen to me about 4 years ago, and I had to learn. And I was able to figure it out, and a lot of it is intuitively guided. Yes, I do a lot of research, but it's always a modification, and then I just give all of that to anybody that I work with, because there's no point if I don't give you the keys to the kingdom of health. You can't thrive, you can't live your life, you can't do your purpose, and then please pass it on. Like, this is the whole point of, I think, being of service to people is
Right.
giving them your gift. They can use those tools themselves and, also help their friends, help their family. So I know that I spoke a lot, but I hope that I
That's
answered
okay.
your question.
Totally. So tell me what happened with your Crohn's disease. That's a really, if anybody's familiar with it, it's really debilitating. It's really hard to get it through your daily life with Crohn's disease.
Oh, yeah.
I've had a couple of friends who've had it, and it's just really
Yeah.
challenging. Did your changes in your diet and kind of your spiritual practices as well solve that, or did it reduce the symptoms?
Oh, no, it completely went away.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Yeah, with diet, it just basically your gut. So, whenever
Hmm.
you have an illness or disease, what that really means is that you are lacking nutrition.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean I mean, in my opinion,
Right.
it's a nutritional deficit. Your
Huh.
your body. So let's say, I'm a Porsche. We're Porsches, and we're putting in diesel.
Hmm.
The Porsche event, it's just not going to run.
Right.
You've got to put premium fuel in your divine vessel,
Right.
because if you don't have your body, you don't have anywhere to live.
So do you feel that's the key for any disease, whether it's Alzheimer's or diabetes? I mean, we have such enormous numbers, especially in the United States, for these particular problems.
Absolutely. I would say that diet is, a lot of people say that diet's like 80% and then
Hmm.
exercise is 20.
Hmm.
And I don't necessarily agree with that, because I feel like
Hmm.
it has to be both. Because throughout my life, I've noticed, okay, yeah, you can eat healthy, but if you aren't moving your body is like, okay, I'm dying. If there's no movement, there's no life. There has to be circulation, because
Mm.
once something
Right.
goes stagnant, it like rots. Like, if we just think of a pool of water, what happens to that pool of water if there's no stream running through it, there's no movement? It either dries up, or it becomes murky and full of bacteria, or infested with, let's just say, mosquitoes. I mean, I know I'm kind of giving a grotesque kind of
Right.
example.
But I understand.
Yeah, so there needs to be movement. There's, chi within the
Right.
body that needs to be moved. And with, I mean, Crohn's is totally debilitating. I mean, you can't even
Hmm.
eat, like a salad. You're just in the bathroom all day, you know.
Yep.
But, I did heal it with macrobiotics and
Wow.
plant-based nutrition. And I remember when I was eating the food, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just feel like so much better." I felt nourished, I felt alive, I felt comforted, I felt satisfied. And the thing too is, people associate diet with restriction. And it's like, no, you can eat as much as your body needs
Right.
when it's the right foods. And your
Right.
body will create an equilibrium or a balance that will say, okay, now I'm full. Like, there's always a process of healing, of becoming healthy again. And if you've had any sort of, high level of health, high level of athleticism in your life, it will
Hmm.
always be easier for you to go back to. And if you've never had it before, yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be challenging. Even if you've had it before and you fell off the wagon, there's always that time period of challenge. But
Right.
man, are the results worth it?
Right. Exactly. The quality of your life
Oh, yeah.
is vastly different. So prior to the podcast interview, we were talking a little bit about a couple of things that are sort of current to us at the moment: vaccines, our medical system. And then you brought up that you've noticed recently on packaging
Yeah.
that the packages of the food also announce that they are not influenced by AI. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're creating artificial type of, it's beyond an artificial ingredient. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's beyond a GMO, is
Oh
what
yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah, it's a biological engineered entity that they are putting in food. Oh yeah, and this has been going on for at least, I say, the last 3 years.
And you've noticed that even at someplace like Costco.
Whole Foods too. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So, in your opinion, it's not, I think, because we kind of tend to like shop and overlook stuff and we don't necessarily read the labels. Sometimes even the labels aren't helpful or actually truthful.
Right.
It's not just that you're saying there's inorganic compounds in the food or that they're genetically engineered. It's another step beyond that where they are AI influenced and bioengineered.
Yeah. Well, and we're getting, you know, that frequency is everywhere. It's in the atmosphere, it's in, products that aren't even food. I think they're also in, products that we use on our body and things like that. So it's always best to read ingredients. When I was working for, I don't know if you know Jamie Oliver, he's an international chef. He worked on the Food Network.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
I did a
He's cool.
program with him for teaching kids, and
Right.
we were
Yeah.
adamant
Great.
about teaching children how to read food labels and how
Mhm.
to just cook on your own. And I also help them like realize, okay, you gotta chew your food because digestion starts in the mouth, and it's so important to chew more than 1 to 3 times and then swallow. It's just better absorption and things like that. But yeah, I think people, the vaccine stuff, it's really like sensitive. I've noticed that people have either really strong opinions about it,
Mhm. Right.
and it's like, okay, it's totally up to them if they want to put that in your body. But for me, and since I was in my early teens, I have always looked at ingredient labels. Like I won't buy anything unless I read that label. I just have, it's like a habit. It's just like, I
Right.
can't just pick something up and be like, yeah, sure. Put it
Yeah.
in my mouth, because it doesn't just go in your mouth or your stomach, it goes to your brain. And as you
Mhm.
mentioned, Alzheimer's and things like that. Yes, there
Mhm.
are ways to prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, all different types of brain issues or mental issues, starting from like depression and anxiety, one of the two most basic things, including insomnia. And it has to
Mm.
do with toxic heavy metals in the body, in the brain, that become accumulated. And there's
Hmm.
specific cleanses that you can do that eliminate even just the side effects from depression, anxiety, insomnia, that go away very quickly. So that's another area that I've been diving into. In fact, my next newsletter is about mental health and like doing a check in, seeing where people are at, because I feel like today, if you're not eating the foods and getting the proper sleep and
Mhm.
exercising, joyful movement, you have fulfilling relationships, it is just hard. You've got to have a good foundation, a good baseline. Because if you don't have that just piece right here, it just exacerbates anything else that is thrown at you on an external level. So
Right.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you really have. It's interesting to kind of take off into a little bit of a tangent on all of these issues, but they're not tangents. Um, they're
So, yeah.
central to our lives at this moment on Earth.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask you about your own personal habits with food and with exercise. And obviously, I mean, you've healed yourself and you've probably healed multiple clients and shared a lot of information and knowledge with others that have empowered them to heal themselves,
Mhm.
which essentially is what we're kind of here to do. So, can you just share what your personal habits are and what your day looks like, food wise, exercise wise, sunlight wise, sleep wise?
Definitely. Well, like even before we started the podcast, I have like the trees right here in the back, and I always have the blinds open because I'm a nature lover for sure.
Hmm.
So for me, I do wake up. So I do set my biorhythm is with the planet. So like
Mm.
in the winter, I'll go to bed earlier, and sleep more, rest more. And plus in the macrobiotic lifestyle, I really got acclimated to that. But so in the summer, I do tend to rise with like the birds, chirping at like before 5 and things like that. And I love, like sunrise, sunsets are really beautiful, not only for your soul, but for the body as well, and like your eyes, just
Mhm.
absorbing that light. So my first thing in the morning is get up and I hydrate. Like first thing in the morning, it's
Hmm.
just like got to get that water in. And I usually like to take a shower because I'm like it's an energetic cleanse and I just feel better. And I'll have a little something for breakfast because I'll, go to the park or I'll do something like exercise. I mean, usually I like to go to the park first thing in the morning because it's beautiful, like the nature. I move my body, like I'm out there for at least an hour
Hmm.
running or doing yoga. I mean, usually it's a
Right.
combination of everything. So if I'm gonna eat something, it's usually fruit in the morning.
Hmm.
Like I'll do like bananas, apples, a orange smoothie or watermelon, like just any kind of like fruit. And then, I usually after I do my workout and plus, not only cardio is really important, but I'm going to say also weights.
Sure.
Weights.
Especially for women as we get older.
Yes, like weights are so important and like doing squats, it's like literally 10 squats I think is equivalent to like 30 minutes of walking.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Get my squats in today.
Right? And it boosts testosterone. So
Hmm.
if you do it, because one of my coaches taught me this, like if you move your body, like especially when you and I, we're like working behind the computer a lot, get up
Uh-huh.
every 50 minutes and do like 10 squats. It boosts
Oh,
testosterone. It's like walking for 30 minutes and it also enhances your mood. So yeah,
okay.
it's good stuff.
Oh, butt movement. That's good.
Exactly.
Butt hip. Yeah. Get those glutes.
And I usually always have like sometimes I'll eat
Huh.
salad twice a day. Like I make a huge salad and I'm talking like all different kinds of greens like kale, arugula. I always have some sort of onion which is like purple or green. I
Hmm.
do carrots and radishes and just basically like anything I want. Sometimes I'll put like an apple in there or like strawberries, and I always have like avocado. I do stay away from vinegar and like oil because vinegar really isn't good for the liver, and that's like a whole nother podcast to talk about.
Huh. Interesting.
Um,
Really interesting.
yeah, because it's a preservative and it's a pickling agent. So
Ah, gotcha.
it's not really great for your organs, but avocado is such a healthy fat. It's excellent for your reproductive system as well. I don't really do salt too much. I'll do Atlantic dual seaweed, and
Hmm.
I love that because it's super salty. So if I want some salt, but and also like any kind of grain, sometimes I'll do like bulgur wheat, or I'll do some sort of like, or I'll do quinoa, or like
Right.
a legume, chickpeas, or it just really depends. But honestly, if I always make sure that I have lettuce or some type of leafy green vegetable twice a day. And sometimes for breakfast, I will have vegetables because my body's like, I don't want sugar. I want
Hmm.
vegetables. Like I do a lot of steamed broccoli, cauliflower, I do potatoes. I
Yeah.
always make sure that I get like a lot of starch in because carbohydrates are really important. Your body runs off of glucose, your brain does, especially.
Hmm.
So I really do love food and like preparing, different dishes, but that's kind of like my go to. In the winter, I eat a lot of soups, like tons and tons of medicinal soups. I don't use oil, I don't use
Hmm.
salt. I do come from like a lot of the plant based doctors that like, say they stay away from SOH, which is, salt, oil, sugar,
Right.
because really like you don't need it, and I cleansed my palate at such a young age that if there is salt, there is oil, there is
Right.
sugar, it's like whoa, like that's intense, because I don't have a coated palate any longer. Like there's no chemicals on it, there's not any of that stuff on it, so I do keep it pretty real and just natural. There's so many minerals and electrolytes and natural salts in foods that I mean, once you know what it tastes like for real, and of course I do organic, like it's really
Right.
difficult for me to do conventional because I can taste and feel the difference.
Right. You can feel the fertilizers, you can feel all of that sort of thing.
The pesticides, I mean, it's a
Yeah, the
different
pesticides.
taste, and then also because they spray.
Glyphosate.
Yes, it's a gut disruptor,
Right.
so you can't absorb the food, and it's pretty awful. And that actually creates Crohn's disease. A
Mm,
lot of the stuff that they do
interesting.
to the food creates a lot, like all this SIBO and all that stuff. I mean, it's just basically your gut is being broken down. There's no, healthy cilia. There's all of these fibers that line your intestinal tract that
Mm.
soak up the nutrition. And when that dies,
Hmm.
you have quote unquote celiac disease, or the SIBO or Crohn's, and your gut isn't absorbing nutrition. It can't digest properly because there's no. It's like missing its own parts, so to speak, because it's not being fed like we discussed earlier. So anyway, I hope that I.
Yeah, you totally did. So when a client comes to you and they have an issue, maybe it's low potassium, maybe it's a parasite, maybe it's candida, or repeated yeast infections or repeated UTIs, which I get a lot, frankly, which women in general get a lot of. There's all those sort of issues, or there's muscle, a lot of tension in their muscles, stuff like that, or depression. Do you go immediately to their diets?
Oh yeah. Well, I look at their entire history. Like,
Okay.
fill out, like, it's almost like going to the doctor. You fill out medical history form. I ask them about their current lifestyle, like what is their home life like what's going on internally, like where is their mindset. I mean, I
Hmm.
I literally hit every single angle, and I have to know their habits and like where are they in their thinking, because if you're going to come to me and say, well, I want it, but I'm not willing to do the work, then there's just it's not going to happen. The person
Right.
has to be fully invested, fully committed, and fully dedicated and say, you know what, I've had enough and I'm ready to cure it. Let's go. So
Right.
part of it is, yeah, looking also too. I mean, I didn't even mention hydration is so
Mhm.
important to juicing, especially when you
Hmm.
are dealing with things like you mentioned, bladder infections, yeast infections,
Mhm.
what is going on, like why, like I will just dig and dig and dig until I get all the information, and then once I have that intake, it's like, okay, let's start off simple and really meeting them where they're at. I've had some clients where they want the whole enchilada and they will just dive straight in. Most people kind of like build up to it, and really
Mhm.
it's a really what it is. When you go into healing, it's a journey to self love.
Mhm. Mhm.
You really start to love yourself and take care of yourself because, quite frankly, like nobody else is going to do it for you. So,
Right.
really, I'm teaching them and giving them the tools to hear and the wisdom. It's like passing down wisdom and saying, okay, this is what I've dealt with before. Like, I've dealt with people who have had post-op heart surgery to thyroid issues to depression, also high cholesterol, high blood pressure,
Mm.
even
Exactly.
internal bladder bleeding. I mean, I've worked with so many different types of issues for men and women.
Mhm.
And it's just, they have to be willing, to do the work and show up. And I think too, movement has a lot to do with it. And
Right.
sleep and relationships. Because if you are exercising and doing it, and yet you are in toxic relationships, that is going to be a major block
Mm.
in order for you to fully heal yourself to thrive, because it's affecting
Mhm.
you on a mental and emotional level, and your body is an entire entity. It's not just from the neck down.
Right.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
I mean, I love it, to be totally honest.
Yeah, I can tell you really love it. You go all in.
Yeah, yeah, I really love it.
Can you address what your opinion is of the medical system as we currently have it in the United States?
We're way behind.
Do you think we're way behind? I have this philosophy. It's my personal philosophy is that we're ahead in some ways, but we're behind in so many other ways that we need to go back to some of the more ancient or native ways of dealing with, especially food and the way we grow food
Yeah.
in order to heal ourselves and kind of heal the planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's really sad because even I feel like, this has just been from my experience, but even holistic practitioners and naturopaths that I have gone to, like when I first had Crohn's disease, they're like, well, take this, but you won't like sunlight
Right.
anymore.
Okay.
Like what? That doesn't sound right either. So, the whole thing is, I think,
Hmm.
yes, like surgery and all that is important, but I feel like what is really the issue is ego. Like
Oh,
if we really, it's like, okay, let's come back to, we are human beings, you know, accreditations, pieces of paper, licenses, what is actually your understanding of the human body, no matter how much
hmm,
education you've had? What
hmm,
is your understanding? And what I have seen is that most practitioners, and one of my clients used to tell me this repeatedly, she's like, they have no idea what I'm going through because they've never dealt with it themselves.
sure.
And
That's sure.
and when you have, like, I've healed myself from Crohn's and all those diseases. I mean, I've dealt with parasites before and I've had to heal from that as well. There's a bunch of injuries that I've had to, heal, and being a yoga teacher and all that has also helped
Hmm.
me, and everything that I know and have wisdom with. But the problem is in the medical system is, like I said, I think it's ego, not really dropping into, okay, your heart, your soul. What is it doing? Are you doing the right thing for this other human? And there's just it's like there's not enough practitioners. And I think that they're being ignorant in a way, because the people, I mean, I had this really horrific experience, with my father passing and him going through the hospital, and I just couldn't believe what happened. I mean, I like filed for malpractice, I don't mess around. I'm like, they wouldn't give me a patient advocate. I had to do, like,
Hmm.
all this roles that really they should have been doing. But the problem is that one of the hospitalists was like, I told him about plant-based nutrition. I had mentioned it. He's like, well, if that were actually true, then everybody would be doing it. And
Of course. Sure.
I'm like, okay, now is not the time to talk to you about this, because, I was involved with the C-suite and all this, because I was like, I need to escalate this to what was going on with my father. But it's like, but you seen any of the studies, the research, the science? It's not one way. That would be like me saying, okay, there's only this one way of healing. No, you have to tailor it to
Hmm.
each individual.
Hmm.
And you have to see what is going on behind the scenes, because that's affecting their diet, their health, their mind, their
Hmm.
stress level.
Hmm.
And I feel like if people actually opened up to that, and they also did their own healing,
Hmm.
because this also goes into like psychology and stuff, and that's a whole nother podcast episode too.
Right.
But we have these professionals and practitioners that have never had major disease or illness,
Uh,
or they don't talk about it, or they do have it and they don't heal themselves. They
hmm.
haven't done the work. There's this whole other unspoken step, I feel like, or awareness or wisdom that needs to be embraced throughout the medical system. And I think it's getting back to humanity. It's getting back to this, the heart and the soul. Yes, the brain is important, or the mind, intelligence,
Hmm.
getting your license, getting trained, and all of that. But do you have the experience? Are you naturally good at this? Do you have intuition? Do you use it? It's, all these things that make up an excellent healer versus, well, I have my doctorate and I've been doing
Hmm.
this for 25 years and I've written 50 books and I know what I'm talking about, but I can't heal you because I have to follow these guidelines and say, oh, just a little bit of exercise and change your diet. you have high cholesterol, but you'll be fine. Here, take some pills.
Take some pills, right? Which are only going to make you sicker and more dependent and
Yeah.
affect other organs in your body as well.
It's a Band-Aid. We have a Band-Aid system. And we
Mm,
need to come together with the psychologist, with
right.
everybody who's involved in the health system. Like, again, going back to what happened in the hospital, I said, why isn't my father had like 8 different doctors. And I'm like, why
Wow.
aren't all of you in here, in this meeting room right now, talking about the best path of medical care for my father? Because this one going here, this one going there, and just reading it off a computer is not
Right.
going to solve the problem.
Read the chart. And
It's like,
my condolences, by the way, to you for your father's passing, and that you were so involved in his end of life care
yeah,
is very challenging.
I had to. I felt like it was my destined role, and I was very supportive of him of what he wanted to do,
Hmm.
and I was just waiting. I was waiting for him to say, "Get me out of here, and take me home."
Right.
And so he could, pass in peace. And I feel like because of everything I've been through and
Hmm.
my knowledge and experience, it literally prepared me to be there for him because, no shade to the rest of my family. I love them, but they really didn't know like what was going on.
Right. And that is an issue, especially whether it's, a sick child or a sick
Yeah.
sister or whatever stage of life you're in, you often really don't have a way to advocate for that patient, even for yourself.
Oh yeah.
And in an end of life situation, it's a bit overwhelming for people that have never had that experience before and really don't know how to either take charge or make sense of everything.
It was really interesting and kind of validating with some of the specialists were asking me if I was a doctor or if I was in
Oh,
the medical
interesting.
field. And then a lot of he
Yes.
was in the ICU, and the nurses were like, you should apply and work in the ICU. And I was like, no way. I was like, thank you. It's a compliment. But, I want to,
Hmm.
I thought about it at the time, but it would be very difficult, to work in the ICU like that. People are extremely it's I think it was a part of humanity and the world that I didn't know existed. It's very scary.
You mean in the ICU unit,
Oh yeah.
the critical care units? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very sad too because, I saw a lot of those patients that were alone. Like I was there at 5:30, 6 a.m. And then I ended up just staying there, like living there, like in the room because I couldn't trust the nursing staff. He had a stroke in the middle of the night and I walked in and the room was a disaster. I was like, what happened? The person didn't leave their name on the board. I did report it to the director and she did nothing about it. She didn't even write down the nurse's name. And I was like, the medical system is beyond broken. It is an injustice to humanity. This is why people are dying of cancer. This is why people are dying of heart disease, heart attack, stroke. Heart disease is the number one killer still. And it's, yes, the food system, it does contribute to that, and then genetics. But there's
Hmm.
this great doctor, his name is Dr. Esselstyn, and one of his lines is genes load the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Mm.
And it's very, very true because I've experienced both. I think illness, and then I experienced, I did get sick. I got parasites and I had no idea what the heck I had, and I had to figure out. The doctors didn't know.
Right.
And then
Yes, they're hard to diagnose.
the testing for that is just totally bogus. And
Right.
it took me a year almost
Hmm.
to figure out what the cure was. And it
Hmm.
wasn't just like the cure. I had to cultivate it. I had to intuitively guide myself how to do it. But you know what? I did it and it was like, oh, here's another big old golden nugget on,
Of information and experience.
yeah, on how to
Yeah,
do that. So,
right.
and then I started getting more and more into like, detoxing heavy metals out of the body to like help with the mind. So it's been a beautiful journey. It's been difficult. I'm not going to lie, but I've realized with this last certification that I got that there's so I've there's so much resilience. I have a lot of resilience, and it's been very humbling. And it's either get busy living or get busy dying. And I'm like, you've got to live out this legacy. You have to deliver. That you have to be here to help people because it's just part of my soul's calling. Just like
Yeah,
your Soul Fam podcast.
right. Exactly. It's kind of to get the information out. I mean, people, as far as I know, we still live in a free country. Maybe not, but you still have the free will. Well, hopefully, without the AI in our food controlling us. But there's a choice to be made. You can get up and walk in the morning, or you can get up and do some things to help yourself. It may be the smallest of things, but it's still going to help. Just like you said, doing squats every 50 minutes, doing 10 squats. And then like, yeah, instead of like chugging a cup of coffee or
Yeah.
something else to bring your energy level up. So, and that's true. A lot of us end up living a sedentary work life because we have so much to do, this kind of desk computer, call oriented.
Yeah. Yeah. The move.
What do you think the answer is? I mean, I have the sense that you feel like there's some sort of overhaul that needs to happen, and especially even as young people, do you feel like our health begins at day one or even prior to day one?
Well, honestly, I do have, I've talked about this before in other interviews. I give a lot of kudos to my mother because
Hmm.
your health, like, it does start in utero.
Right.
My mom was, I have two other sisters, I'm middle, and she did say to me, she's repeatedly said, I was the healthiest with you. She actually
Hmm.
would go to the park. I'm like, no, no wonder, like, I feel so comfortable there. So she used to go and walk the park and like, she ate a lot of vegetables. She ate a lot of fruits. I was always really drawn to that. And as a child, I really had an adversity towards meat. I wasn't a
Hmm.
huge carnivore. I wasn't drawn to it. So, and they did raise us with like fruit platters and like vegetable platters, and there was always a salad like at the dinner table. So we would eat a salad before we would eat anything else. So it does. My parents were, my father too. He like amazed me with his transition, but he was so fit.
Hmm.
I mean, I thought we all were like, yeah, whatever, dad, because he's like, I do my 200 push-ups and 300 sit-ups like every day. And literally, like, he was so toned at 80,
Wow.
just toned muscle. And I was like, go, dad. Like, he was such, like, at heart, he was really a hippie,
Cool. Right on.
exactly. Like,
That's great.
though he was, a computer tech guy, like in the 3D
Hmm.
world, but,
Hmm.
seeing that beautiful transition, I was like, oh my God, he didn't cut his hair for like a few months. And it was just like, oh my God, I'm like, my dad, why weren't you like this way? you know?
Growing up, you mean?
Yeah,
Why would you do that?
we got the
Yeah.
serious side. But as far as, yes, it does start when you're young. And it does matter a lot because it affects your mindset too.
Uh,
It really affects everything. And when you were saying like what's the answer? Like what do you mean? What's the answer to what specifically?
what do you think the answer to health is overall? It's not just here in the United States, worldwide, we have a bit of a health crisis in many situations. And there's also hunger, but uh, I see a big difference between certain nations' state of health.
Mhm.
And I feel like you probably have a big vision for health overall.
Honestly, I think it starts with consciousness,
Hmm.
awareness, and connecting mind, body, soul. And I think the more humanity embraces that and not just focusing on the material and not embracing age. People who get to age is a privilege, instead of a short. I mean, it just depends. But honestly, I think we're still lacking that, the preciousness, like being aware and appreciating the preciousness of life itself. That it's not, I had a major, after that huge experience too with my father. I mean, and it went like quick, that it was like, I just don't see the world the same. It's like literally the human body. I remember shortly after he passed, and I was driving to the grocery store, and I saw this guy running, and I'm like, we have no clue how the human body actually works. Like, we don't. We're studying AI. We're studying like all these things that I feel like they're missing. There's a gap. And, we talked about the gap of, and I keep going back to it, say, mind, body, soul connection. Like, it is not just one thing. It's not a pill. It's not this. It's not, I think it's a blessing, it's like, once people take things for granted, or they just see what's in front of them and don't realize that there's this whole other thing going on. I mean, I think it's 4 billion. You have a 1 in 4 billion chance of being born, and being here on the planet. And we have more cells in our body than the entire universe. I mean, that's just, it's mind boggling.
That is mind boggling, actually.
And there's this whole other thing too that we don't know. People, it's taboo to talk about, well, maybe not so much, but to talk about death and like that whole experience of transitioning and what happens. I mean, I literally felt and saw and like witnessed and experienced my father still at work during the whole process, and even after. And we had to update like his truck license plate, and he was, he wanted to be a professional golfer. He wanted all of us to be golfers, and the license plate that came back said PGA on it.
Oh, funny.
And we did not ask for anything specific, or from the DMA, nothing. And I'm like, how can you explain that?
I see. After he had passed,
Yes.
That was his influence.
Yeah, like months. And
That's
I'm like,
really funny.
what? Like, it's really, yeah, life is a miracle. And I think we're missing that.
Right. And we don't understand our own power.
Yeah, power, how the body works, like what a miracle this vessel and entity is, because sticking needles and putting plugs and just machines and like it's not doing anything. It's like, you can't replace blood. Like, they don't even know how to replicate blood. And if we don't have blood, it's it's gold in our body, because your blood contains your immune system, your DNA, your genes. Like, it's got intelligence beyond what science can reproduce. It has evolution in it. And without blood, you're dead. Precious resource that's running this whole thing. There's just, medicine is so, so, so far behind. We're too fixated on pills. Like, I'm sorry, but they're Band-Aids. Maybe they do really help some people, but I'm talking about
long-term
level, of health. That's where I'm going, and I've been focused on. So to each their own, I'm not bashing or anything like that, but
sometimes you need the Band-Aid. That's understandable.
Yes.
But it's just an interesting conversation. And that we don't actually, when you say that out loud, I think, actually, she's right. We don't really understand our bodies because, gee, I don't know what's wrong. Why is my gut upset all? Why do I have headaches? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why is my energy so low today? But then I'm better tomorrow. So, there's all that sort of mystery still surrounding our bodies, and which are related. I mean, we're not just vessels. There's a consciousness.
Yes. Energy.
Yeah.
Energy that you cannot see or touch or measure, or anything. It's quantum physics. That's
Hmm.
a whole nother, yeah, that's a whole nother thing too. But, and how we can influence that too. Like you can help your body heal too, just,
Right,
how you're thinking.
right,
That has a lot
exactly.
to do with it too. So I do go into mindset work too with my clients because I have certification in, positive thinking and doing all that type of work. It's called high performance, but it's way deeper than that. So yeah,
Amazing, amazing.
yeah, I
So when a client, I want to be sure, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but when a client comes to you, and I understand you do this full body assessment, I'm curious, Laura, what is your overall goal with your specific practice? Because this feels like it has a broader reach, like you have a bigger vision for this besides individual clients, and perhaps there's books involved, perhaps there's cookbooks involved as well.
yeah.
That might be on your agenda.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know that my audience would be like, "Yeah, hello, like where's your book?"
Right.
I mean, they've been asking me for a long time and I've,
Yes.
as like behind the scenes having your own business, there's a lot. There's a lot to do and
Right.
sometimes you don't have the time. But I know part of my purpose and mission and like my calling, which is always gnawing at me, is like, having a healing center,
Mm,
and that's
right.
incorporating, like I've had people in my life where I'm like, yeah, come do the healing center. My dream is to have it in Hawaii. Yeah.
That
And
sounds amazing.
or even like a university, that
Hmm.
has like a cafe. We have cooking classes, we have Reiki, we have massage, we have, lecture classes. Like that would be like more university type. And then, the credits, medical practitioners could actually like, go towards their own license and things. But then, a healing center, it's more of like a softer approach of like people coming for, counseling and real healing. Like there's, colonics being an option, like there's supplements, there's books,
Hmm.
and it's not just my books. Like these are
Right.
books that have helped me heal as well. And the supplements, I mean, my God, I've tried like so many freaking supplements since I was in my 20s, and I finally found supplements that actually like work and they don't have all these other added ingredients. And
Mm,
it's so confusing with all the information and everything out there, but actually helping people heal. Because when I went on this like other healing journey that I had to go through recently, I was like, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing because
oh, interesting.
I was trying like, infrared and this and this and that. And
Right.
it was draining me. So I
Hmm.
had to just totally let go of everything that I had previously kind of like learned and did, even though it was still connected, but still, I think being a healer, being a teacher, you have to be open to learning. You
Hmm.
have to have some level of humility and humbleness to say, okay, if that's not working, what is the other thing that I need to acclimate or learn or explore in order to enhance my skills to help other people? So yeah, I want to have a healing center. That's been gnawing at me for a
Good.
while, and I want to have a team because
Hmm.
I mean, I'm just gonna be transparent. It's intimidating, to say, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go open a healing center and it'll be sick.
There's a lot of nuts and bolts involved.
Yeah, it is, and also to not let the system eat you alive and doing
Hmm.
something like that. That's a whole nother, thing to consider. But it's it's definitely, I think, in the works, however it's going to. Like the manifestation is definitely progressing. But yeah, I have to do something like that because if I don't, I feel like, oh, I failed like my mission on the planet this lifetime. So
Probably not. If you're helping one person at all, then you haven't failed.
yeah. And of course, like, people have asked me for like, why don't you do shirts and merchandise and stuff? And, I think when I was building my business, it was more about the people and really giving them what they needed
Hmm.
instead of more consumerism and things like that. I mean, when the pandemic happened, I was like, there was a lot of entrepreneurs that encouraged people to say, oh, this is like the most beneficial time to like take advantage of people because nobody knows what's going on. So just sell
Mm.
them like something. And it's like, that really didn't sit well with me because I'm like, I'm never going to do business the way that, I wouldn't want to receive business from somebody else. So I really try to stay in line with integrity practices like, yes, going quiet sometimes, just you have to self reflect and you have to make sure that you're still in alignment with your values and your morals and your ethics to show
Mhm.
up to serve the world in a better, more positive direction. And I think too, it's like, oh, we have to keep producing because we're an influencer or we're, an educator, or we have to give constant content. And it's like, we're still human beings and we still go through major events in our lives. It's like just because we're putting our face out there doesn't mean we don't have stuff going on in our lives. We want to like put out our best. So thank you for that question. I'm sorry, kind of blew it up, but yeah,
No.
just having the university and a healing center or a combination or something like that is the ultimate goal. And then and I do feel like there is something more, but I'm not. It's coming. I'm not sure what it is yet.
Yeah, the world has to be ready for it. So
Right.
for it to be received, it's getting ready. It's getting
Right.
ready.
You're right.
All right. Well, how do people get in touch with you? How do they, reach out to you? What's the best way to get information, which I know you have available to people? Some crucial sort of information to help themselves, even without being a client.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, the easiest way is just my email, just
okay.
Laura at liveveganvibrantly.com. I used to have like scheduling and all that, and let's just make it simple. Life is complicated enough right now.
This is true.
Yeah. So email, and then, I changed the format of my newsletters. I really like how these are going. They're more like in depth. There are a lot of
Hmm.
information. So if you can come back to them, and I always have all my info and people can just hit reply, and if you want to get on my list, you can go to theveganvibrantly.com. There's like a free gift and a
Oh,
tutorial
cool.
and things if you want it. But by entering your email, you will just get onto my mailing list. So, and I just want to keep it really simple right now. I'm in a big transition with life, and my
Hmm.
family, and it's I think too just enjoying that part, like being human and still helping people and being of service. But like I said, that was a massive shift that I went through, and it was at the beginning of the year. So 2025 has been nothing less than transformative.
It is for a lot of people. It's been I mean, it's like, is it over? I keep thinking it's over, but it's just not. We're
Almost.
still in May. It's been a
We're
big
almost
year.
halfway, so yeah, it's crazy. It's just going by for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, thank you for your time and all your information. I want to remind everybody to like and subscribe, and please go to Live Vegan Vibrantly. Sign up for the newsletter. It's really packed full of information, whether you are worried about a particular issue or you just want more information to sort of fill out your day, fill out your grocery list, understand a little bit more about the importance of food in living a better life and a bigger life. Um, her newsletter is really valuable.
Thank you for that. I love the newsletter. It's definitely a pride and joy for me, and I put a lot of heart and soul into it. And I'm just very happy of like the evolution of what's been happening with me and my business. It's been something to embrace for sure, and I hope everybody else can find some sort of helpfulness out of it.
Mhm.
In the ways that they need it to be. I'm always open to feedback. So a lot of people say, "Can you write about this? Can you write about that?" And I'm saying,
Right,
"Absolutely, of course."
right. It's very applicable to your daily life. Really, really helpful. Even if you're not concerned about anything at all, it'll give you a little pause to say, oh, yeah, maybe I should do that differently.
Thank you, Diana.
All right. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you again on another podcast, Laura. And please, everyone, remember to like and subscribe and to hit Laura's reply for her newsletter.